My dear friends, good day. Do you know the difference in salary between a professional soccer player and a nurse? Some of you will think it's pretty unfair. Some of you will think it's outrageous. And some of you will say, yes, but beyond the guy who kicks a ball, there's a whole financial machine. Considering how much the player brings in, he deserves his millions, etc. Everyone has their own opinion. What I know is that this kind of gap is as old as the world. I'm obviously thinking of the ancient sports star, the king of the arena, who manages athletics, show business, and showmanship at the same time, Russel Crowe. Maybe you think you've read and seen everything about gladiators. Today, we're going to dig to see all the money that's hidden under the sand of the Colosseum. Let's go back 2,000 years. The Roman world is at its peak during the High Empire. It stretches from the British Isles to North Africa, from the Iberian Peninsula to the far reaches of the Orient. How to maintain in one block such a vast territory with so many different peoples? Well, first of all, by centralizing it around the emperor, placed above all the peoples around the city of Rome, which counts 1 to 2 million inhabitants, but also by spreading its cultural model everywhere, either with the help of the army, which imposes the Pax Romana, the military peace, or with the help of religion, because the imperial cult prevails over all the others, or with the help of great shows, chariot races, theater, and fights that tell the history of the empire everywhere. Our own sports appeared earlier, and later federations created national teams. There, clearly not. Very quickly, gladiatorship is a tool of the state. So inevitably, we see things in a big way. The Greek theater is too small, and they prefer to invent a special building for the gladiators, the amphitheater, or double theater. And they're built everywhere, because this typically Roman building immediately becomes a symbol of belonging to the empire. All the cities want them, and that's why we find more than 200 of them. These spectacula, that is to say the place where you can see, are made of wood, but their architecture will evolve a lot. Each amphitheater is unique. Some, like in Rome or Arles, are built on a flat platform. We'd say they have walls and radiating vaults. Others take advantage of the terrain and lean against an embankment or a hillside, as in Fréjus, Saintes, and Martigny. And sometimes it's combined with a stage wall, like in Grand or Paris, where you can do both theater and gladiatorial performances. When we don't do as in Greece, we simply recover an already existing theater that we rework with a podium. In any case, given the size and cost of the machine, the goal is always to save money. And that's why we're willing to salvage any materials, reliefs, or old buildings that we have on hand. Because we know that behind it, we will pay for thousands of cubic meters of cut stones, bricks, recycled stones, concrete, and wood. The construction could take a very long time. It took, for example, 10 years for the Colosseum in Rome, not to mention the dozens and dozens of workers to be paid. In short, even before the first gladiatorial show, there is already a whole construction economy. And all this is financed by both the empire and private individuals. The amphitheater of the Three Gauls in Lyon, for example, was paid for by 3 people. Julius Rufus, a citizen of the city of Santon and a priest of Rome and of Augustus, but also his son and his grandson after him. All this in memory of the Emperor Tiberius Caesar Augustus. This practice was not uncommon. It is called evergetism. The everget is a notable person, someone who has succeeded and who invests a lot of money in public infrastructures because it honors him, his city, and the empire. Basically, it's like if all the French multimillionaires, who are tax evaders, they would start paying for municipal swimming pools, stadiums, or public libraries. That would be nice. Of course, there's a trade-off. The more you spend, the more public honor you get. Then imagine if you paid 300,000 or 400,000 sesterces of work for a theater like that of Leptis Magna. And for an amphitheater or a circus, you can certainly count 2 or 3 times this amount. To realize the colossal fortunes that this represents, you just have to compare with our contemporary restoration works. 4 million euros for the rehabilitation of Saintes, and 18.5 million euros just for the floor of the Colosseum in Rome. So I think we've done a little bit of a tour of the building, and now we're going to look at the athletes. And not surprisingly, again, there's a lot of money involved. The state and the patrons are putting their hands in their pockets. Provocatores, Triax, Hoplomachus, Mirmilo, Retiarius, and Secutores. All these specialized gladiators, with regulated weapons and codified fencing, must be trained and equipped before they can fight. Gladiator schools flourished throughout the empire, and their fighters could be found on every continent of the Roman world. The lanist, the owner of the school, provides everything: training, weapons, and armor. Each school has a minimum amount of equipment to support the whole group, which is called La Familia Gladiatoria. But the gladiators' equipment is very specific. It is not the equipment of normal soldiers, nor the standard weapons. The helmets, for example, are very complex, with a large mask, jugular protections, a large neck guard, and a large crest. All this requires raw material, assembly, and a real know-how. Moreover, the images of the time show that they change very little over the centuries and all over the empire. We are therefore talking about a rare object made only by specialized craftsmen who preserve a unique technique. In short, the helmet has an exorbitant cost. So it's not individual, it's shared within the school. In the great gladiatorial barracks of Pompeii, which was frozen by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, there were very few helmets found, for example. So the gladiators are very supportive of each other. As they say, once a gladiator, always a gladiator. So when death strikes, this little world also participates in the funeral economy. The gladiators, their schools, and the members of La Familia have financed many gladiator steles. Here again, we are talking about a very valuable object, and the tombstone cutters are making a lot of money. Today, there are hundreds of steles dedicated to gladiators, often more numerous than those dedicated to Roman soldiers. It must be said that gladiatorship is a very family business. In Thasos in the 1st century, for example, Euphrilos and his wife Hecatea owned several gladiators. We know that they were married, but they are mentioned separately, each with their own, because yes, women owning gladiators is quite common. It's not the only economic sector that gladiatorship is flooding, because like today, high-level sportsmen are entitled to their own products. Oil lamps, carved knife handles, jewelry, children's toys, murals, and mosaics are decorated with gladiatorial iconography and are sold in stores all around the amphitheaters. Sometimes an item is named after one of the arena's stars, like in the cartoon Hercules, in fact, where Pain and Panic have vases, sandals, and sodas named after the demigod. So really, everything you see in Disney's Hercules was serious. It's the exact equivalent of our caps, our scarves, and our soccer jerseys. Now imagine we are in the city. The amphitheater is built, the gladiators are present, and the goodie stores are open. As in every city, we have access to a public calendar of several dozen dates per year. Expanded to the whole empire, then it's easily hundreds, thousands of shows that the gladiators provide every year. It's a well-established organization, comparable to FIFA or the Olympic Committee. As a result, like for the Bayonne celebrations or the Cannes Festival, the crowd arrives from far away and the city dwellers are delighted. The inns are filling up. As always, it is the local elite who pay for the games to the glory of Rome and to their own glory. Because a gladiator costs an arm and a leg, and the lanist who trained him takes 4 to 5 times more than his student. In Carthage, a single show cost 40,000 sesterces. In Lyon, Titus Cenius Solemnus, the last known high priest of the Council of the Gauls, paid for about 30 fights for a 4-day show. In the 1st century, Petronius quietly stated that 3 days of fights cost 400,000 sesterces. If you remember the beginning of the episode, that's almost the price of a theater. So let's do a little mathematical breakdown. Given that at the same time, a basic Roman legionary gets a pay of 800 sesterces per year, how many years would he have to work to get paid like that? Well, 500 years. That's a lot. This funding is called munera, which means gift, offering, self-giving. The Italica table, a bronze plaque discovered in Santiponce, Spain, regulates its price. There are 4 types of munera according to 5 classes of gladiators, ranging from the most successful to beginners. In Latin, the tiro. Someone who organizes a small show of 30 to 60,000 sesterces will obviously not have access to alpha or beta gladiators. On the other hand, with a munera of 150,000 sesterces, one has the choice of quality or quantity, 10 alpha gladiators or 25 beginner gladiators. Also, the gladiator is paid in proportion to the size of the show, kind of like Brad Pitt getting a bigger paycheck in a bigger movie. So the beginner who plays in a small second-rate show only gets 3,000 sesterces. But if he participates in a very important munera, he can get 6,000 sesterces, definitely double. With so much money spent, you can ensure a minimum of publicity, like the city of Pompeii, which has an edictum proclaimed to announce its games. Unfortunately, the rivalry with the neighboring city of Nuceria is going to cost it a lot. A brawl breaks out between two clans of supporters, real hooligans from the ancient times. Pompeii is then forbidden from gladiatura for 10 years. Just imagine the catastrophe. After all that, I guess you understand a little bit better these bloody shows that are a little bit strange to us. On the scale of the empire, it represents millions and millions of sesterces between the construction, the craft industry, the small trade, and the show. Not to mention that public and private funding has a political intention. Elections, individual or municipal careers, tightening of the social bond, even acculturation of the subjugated peoples with the help of a monstrous entertainment industry. Exactly like Hollywood today, in fact. The last question we can ask ourselves is, with all the millions it represents, would a Hollywood star really enjoy dying in a movie today? Would a pro gladiator have fun killing the guy in front of him, like in some movies? Well, no. A huge thank you to Brice Lopez for preparing this episode. I put his work in the description. You'll see it's very interesting. Thanks to you for watching it. I really hope that you enjoyed this spotlight on the ancient mentality as much as I did. See you soon on Nota Bene.